The last graph we want to look at in section 2.3 is something called a time series plot. These are line graphs that use time on the horizontal axis and the measure of some variable on the vertical axis. So time is on the horizontal axis or the x-axis. These are actually very common in economics, business, those types of areas. The news. Right, they're all over the place. All right, so the following table shows the unemployment rate for Black and white Americans from 1990 through 2019. These are from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, so if you're interested, you can go grab the data yourself. So you can see right here, there's the Black unemployment rate, and then there's the white unemployment rate. And you can see over here on the horizontal axis is time. In this case, it's in years. It can be days, can be months, can be years, any of those values. So we want to estimate the unemployment rate for white Americans in 2010 and interpret that value. All right, so 2010 is this year, so it's right there that we're looking at. And it looks like, let's see here, if this is 5, 6, 7, 8, that's 9 right there. That's 8 right there. It's closer to 9 than it is to 8. So probably put it at about 8.7% or so. 8.8. So, and it says estimating because of course we're eyeballing this. I'm not going into the table and grabbing it. So I'm going to estimate 8.8% just for the sake of it. All right, what does that mean? In 2010, about 8.8% of white Americans, right, that category, were unemployed. Right? According to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, which is a government agency. All right, now what about Black Americans in 2010? Okay, so let me go back to the graph. And I just picked 2010 for the sake of it, right? So it's right here. So you can see that's 15, that's 16. It looks like it's right on the line, maybe just a touch below. So it looks like 15.9 or 16%, somewhere in there. So I'm going to estimate it at 15.9%, just because that's a more fun number. All right, I like it when there's decimals. So what does that mean? That means in 2010, about 15.9% of the category of Black Americans. Oop, I lost my C there. All right, Black Americans, there we go, were unemployed. Right? So you're able to gain a lot of information from graphs like this. They really show trends. Actually, that's a very important use of these. So they're very common in economics and statistics. They show trends over time, and that's a big deal. That's a lot of what we want to look at. Right? How have things adjusted and changed over time? So that's what a time series plot is good at showing. So if I go down here, we've got our interpretations. List some important characteristics of this graph. What does the graph reveal about unemployment in the U.S. over this 30-year period? So they're talking about trends right here, right? So that's what that's asking about. Right? Is there a trend? What do we see when we look at the graph? Well, I'm not an economist, so there are a lot of important characteristics that I could see. So let's just start with that. Some characteristics, some important characteristics. Character. I can't spell. There's an R. My R looks like a P. It's driving me crazy. That's what's making it take me forever. All right, character. There we go. Okay, so I notice when I look at this, there's spikes. You see the spikes? So there's one in kind of 1992, and then there's a big one in 2009 and 2010 right in there. So there's like a mini recession here, right? So think about this. When unemployment goes down, good things, right? When unemployment is high, bad things, right? Unemployment is not something you want. So I guess we can make notes. So unemployment is low means the economy is going well. See about economics? When unemployment is high, we can call it a recession, or it depends on how bad it is. If it's really high, it's a depression. So that means an economic recession. So this is sad, right? When unemployment is high, bad things. When unemployment is low, smiley face, right? Okay, so we notice there's some spikes, right? There are spikes in unemployment. In 1992, and then about 2009 through 2011 or so, right? So we have high unemployment. Spikes means high, right? High spikes in unemployment, which means there's economic downturns in those times. All right, now there's one other important thing, the trend. There's another trend I see, which is maybe so obvious that it kind of, you lose it for a second. You don't even realize it. So there's one thing to see here. There's spikes, right? And there's downturns. But there's one thing that's staying consistent, which is that there's a gap between black unemployment and white unemployment. And black unemployment is always higher. The gap is actually narrowing just a little bit right here. But then COVID-19 hits right after that, which I don't have the data for, right? So we don't know what happens after that. There's big spikes after this, right? So you'll notice there's always a large gap, and black unemployment is always significantly higher. As a matter of fact, for the year that we looked at, we can make a note. This was almost double. If you take 8 times 2, it's 16, and we're almost there, right? So note the black unemployment rate was double, or almost double. Almost 2 times what the white unemployment rate was in 2010. And that's a trend to notice. That's actually where this particular graph was being analyzed for when I first found it, was noticing there's an important trend, which is that black unemployment in the US for the last, well, since 1990, black unemployment from 1990 to 2019, which is what this graph shows, was always higher than white unemployment by a significant margin. And remember, high unemployment, being higher, is not a good thing. Ooh, whoa. It's really not a good thing if I can't write through my paper. There we go. It's not a good thing. Oops, that smiley face is bothering me. I have to hold my paper sometimes to keep it from, there we go, frowny face, right? So remember, being higher on this graph is not a good thing. So the fact that black unemployment is always significantly higher throughout the entirety of those 30 years, right? That's showing something about unemployments and about the economy in the U.S. and about racial problems in the U.S. And that's being exposed by that graph.